And welcome to Crash Media Paranormal Conversations with Crash. I'm Craig,
And I'm Ashley.
and tonight we're going to be talking about Hollywood and some of our favorite movies and if Hollywood got it right. And we're going to start right now. And welcome back. I'm Craig.
And I'm Ashley.
And Ashley, how was your week?
It was very good. Busy, but good.
Oh, exactly. I know
How was
exactly. Yeah.
how was yours?
Mine was a little bit on the I am exhausted side.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's been a good day. It's been a good week. It's
Yeah.
been a good day.
Mhm.
So, what are we talking about tonight, Miss Ashley?
So tonight we're going to talk about Hollywood, the movies and series, anything featuring the paranormal, and did Hollywood get it right? Sometimes they tend to embellish things to make it, scary and
Right.
just for cinematic effect. But some of them actually feature some really good points of the paranormal and based on like theories and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. Did Hollywood get it right?
Yeah. And I guess I can start this off tonight talking about one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. See, I'm a classic movie buff. So I
Mm-hmm.
love some of the original like 70s and 80s and even before like Dracula, Frankenstein, The Mummy, the Universal monsters.
Yeah.
So the first one that I'm going to talk about tonight is from 1980, and it is The Changeling with George C. Scott. Now, this is the movie that I honestly believe started a lot of the haunted house movie tropes that we've seen and that have been copied a lot from. It pretty much ticks all of the haunted house movie boxes. So the story is about George C. Scott is the main actor, a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant actor. But after his wife and daughter are killed in a car accident, the widower, and he's a famous composer, and he rents out this huge Victorian mansion to work on his latest composition. And he works as a guest lecturer at a local university. But what he doesn't know is that this house has a tragic history that he has to unravel. Now, the haunting starts off really slow, and I think this is something that they did get right on this. Starts with tappings and knocks, and then one night, he wakes up and all of the water taps are running. So there's more paranormal activity, and it eventually leads him to find like the secret room in the attic. And by the way, there are spoilers in tonight's episode. But he starts investigating the history of the house and the family who owned it. And with the help of the spirit that's still trapped in the house, he uncovers the old family secret that involves a U.S. senator. So it goes into like political intrigue and everything else. But the story, the acting, the mystery, it is an absolute solid film. And I think it helped create the whole haunted house movie genre while going off into a little bit of a political thriller at times. But it is definitely what I would call a genre making and genre defying movie at the same time.
Yeah. I'll definitely have to check that one out because I have not seen it.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the best that's ever made. One of the
Yeah.
absolute best. Right.
Yeah. And so a lot of the movies that we're going to be talking about tonight, they're movies that we personally love. And, if you haven't seen any of these, you definitely need to check them out.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes draw your own conclusions on whether or not you think something is realistic or a little bit like Hollywood-fied.
Yeah, exactly.
um, yeah. And so one of my picks tonight, it's called I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. Now, I want to say this. I've recommended this movie to a lot of people because I personally loved it, but it's not everyone's cup of tea. So this movie, it's a very slow build. And just a little bit about the movie. It's based about a woman, and by the way, like Craig said, there's gonna be spoilers. I'll try not to give away, too much. But it's about a woman who is hired as a live-in nurse to care for an elderly woman, and she begins to notice that the house is haunted. And so the elderly woman is actually an author, and she writes books about a house being haunted. But it turns out the book that she wrote, which kind of like made her a famous writer, was based on an actual murder that took place in the house. And so the murdered spirit is actually um, in this house, and that's who's haunting it. And it's more of like this vengeful spirit. The movie overall, it has poor ratings because, I mean, a lot of times people are looking for jump scares when they go to watch a scary movie.
Right.
This is not that film where you're going to be on the edge of your seat and have those jump scares thrown at you. Like I said, this is a very slow build. To me, I love the movie because it's very artistic, and I felt like it was portrayed in such a beautiful way. Um, I look at it with a little bit more from a different perspective, really, because I looked at it as there was things in the movie that made sense to me as someone who has always experienced hauntings and the paranormal.
Right.
And a lot of times in movies, it's featured with, like really overly scary stuff.
Yeah.
Like ghosts are just out to get you,
Uh-huh.
and they, do crazy stuff. And um, but I felt like some of the scenes, um, the the director did a really good job of building tension with you not expecting a jump scare, but a slower build, maybe with the use of music and camera angles. Um, that's what kind of builds the tension, and it does have that uneasy feeling, and you know that there's something there, and it's little subtle things throughout the movie within like the haunting. But one of my favorite lines, and like I said, this movie's like very poetic, and this is kind of like towards the beginning, and it says, I have heard myself say that in a house with a death, I'm sorry, let me start that. I have heard myself say that a house with a death in it can never again be bought or sold by the living. It can only be borrowed from the ghost that stayed behind.
Oh, I like
I
that.
just, yeah, everything, the way that that's like an internal monologue at the beginning, but it's so, it's just beautifully done.
Hmm.
Um, and let's see, some of the things that I felt that they got right. Now, of course, there's things in the movie that are a little too like Hollywood. Like the ghost is vengeful. Like
Yeah.
she wants to, she doesn't want anyone there, so she's like trying to kill the living there, which in real life, ghosts are not out to get you.
No.
They're not
No.
out to, drive you to the point that you want to off yourself, or which there has trigger warning of that. That's an underlying lying part in the movie. So um but some things that I feel that they did get right. um let's see, I'm gonna go through my list because there's several points I want to make about this movie. There's another line in it that says worrying the floors in confused circles.
Ooh,
I thought
I
that
like
was a
that.
beautiful way. Yeah, it's like a good way to describe a residual haunting.
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
So there's certain things, the cinematography in this movie that you kind of see from like a spirit's perspective as well, and almost like going dormant, and what it's like for a spirit. And I'll get more into that in just a minute, but there's a couple of more lines that I really like the way they describe it. So an echo, a
Mm.
stain, both of those terms are used, and to me, that kind of plays off of what we talked about with our episode with residual versus intelligent. Um, it's like the spirit, the entity, like their energy is just absorbed into this house. I feel like this movie portrays both residual and an intelligent haunting, because obviously the ghost is aware of the living there and wants to off these people. So, um, but let's see. Let me go through my list. There's one scene that really stood out to me, and this was during a part that had like this internal monologue, and it started with the entity kind of like showing the spirit. and the camera angle is kind of like panning out. So it's like zooming out, and the house kind of, the room fades away, and it becomes this like dark abyss. And there's this, the light is still kind of shining on the entity. So you see the spirit, but she almost curls up in this like fetal position, and the image becomes very blurred. And the voiceover that goes along with it when it's talking about an echo, a stain, and to me that kind of went along with some of my own personal theories about hauntings, because you and I both know when it comes to haunted locations, um, there sometimes it can be a super active location.
Hmm.
Sometimes nothing's going to happen.
Right.
It comes in waves.
It really
And
does.
living, yeah, and growing up in a haunted house, there are times where we would experience a whole lot of activity for maybe a 3 week period. Then there would be maybe 3 months of nothing, and then it would start up again. So it
Right.
kind of comes and goes in waves. And that scene right there kind of just put it into perspective for me of maybe that's what it's like when a ghost goes dormant in your house. Like they're
Yeah.
still there. Or, I've always had the question, when they're not active, where do they go?
Yeah.
And the poetic part of this monologue, it was almost describing this ghost would go into this state of confusion, and the way they blurred the scene, it kind of portrayed like the confusion. Like I
Yeah.
just really liked that.
Hmm.
Um, So, but like I said, most people, like I've recommended this movie, and there's been people like, you made me waste 2 hours of my life. I'm like,
Well,
no, the movie was so good.
yeah,
And they're
and
like,
I've seen it. It's been a while, but I have seen, this is one that I have seen, and I like a
yeah,
slow build movie. I like
yes,
an
I do too.
atmospheric movie. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm with you 100% on that. I like to be immersed into it, so I like that slow build, which is
Yeah.
why even though it's not on our list, one of my absolute favorite movies is Alien, the original Alien from the
Hmm.
70s, because it's such a slow build up to like this amazing action sequences, and it's,
Yeah.
I love a slow build.
And if you think about it, like Quentin
Hmm.
Tarantino movies, his movies are like that a lot. Like you
Yeah.
don't actually get to the main part of one of his movies until like what, the halfway through the second act or
Act.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that happens in the movie that doesn't necessarily even have anything to do with what's about to happen.
Hmm.
Like, and so but the only thing different with this movie is it's it is very slow to even,
Yeah.
stuff happens throughout the movie, but it's very slow.
Right.
I liked it, and I thought it was a good depiction of an actual haunting, except for the part where the ghost like wants to just kill everybody. You know.
Just goes on the rampage. Exactly.
Mm.
Mm-mm-mm. Well, my next movie that I have is, and I am passionate about this movie. I have shown so many people this movie, but it is El Orfanato. Let me get that there. El Orfanato in 2007, and it's The Orphanage. And it's like this incredible gothic supernatural haunted house movie, and it is, like I said before, one of my absolute favorite movies ever made. It's produced by Guillermo del Toro, which is like one of the best, the director of Hellboy and uh, the movie where the guy where she falls in love with the creature from the Black Lagoon, but it's not the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh yeah, I know
Yeah,
what you're talking
yeah,
about. I can't think of the name of that one either. Water,
yeah.
the
I'm
something of
drawing a
water,
blank. Right, right, right. And it
something
is
of water.
The Shape of Water. That's it. The Shape of
Yes,
Water.
yes, that's it.
Yeah, and he is an amazing talent. But it also stars Belen Rueda, who is an amazing actress, and it's a co-production of Spain and Mexico, and it's set in Asturias in Spain, and it's about a young girl named Laura. Or so Laura is adopted from this huge Gothic orphanage, and like 30 years later, comes back and buys the property along with her husband and her young son Simon, and they're going to turn it into a home for disabled kids. So she is a doctor. She, works with disabled kids. So She was passionate about this home her entire life, but she never knew what happened to all of her friends. So, in this movie, Simon, who is like this brilliant young little kid, he's like 7 years old, and he totally just disappears one day. It's a little tragic how he disappears. There's a whole build up to his disappearance, and he's gone. But before he left, he has this imaginary friend that he meets named Tomas, and he draws him, and it's like super creepy because he's got like a sack mask on, and they have this big party to welcome the parents of the kids that are going to be living in this house. And all of a sudden, there's appearance of this kid with a sack mask on, and dressed in basically a potato sack and everything. It is the creepiest thing you've ever seen in your life. And so Simone is gone. Simone is gone for like 6 months, and during this time, she starts experiencing the paranormal. She doesn't know if it's her son. She doesn't know if he's alive, if he's dead, if he's been kidnapped. She doesn't know. And it is one of those perfectly atmospheric movies that you just get sucked into. And whether it's in Spanish, whether it's in English, you are just immersed into this world of Laura, Simon, and her husband. And what I think they get right is Laura comes across sort of like a paranormal expert, and it's sort of like the all of a sudden I can't think of their names. The famous paranormal duo. All of a sudden my brain is blank. But
Well, Warrens.
yeah, the
That-
Warrens. Yeah, I'm having a bad time tonight. But she hears apparitions, noises, strange happenings, and eventually, she comes across him and his partner, who's a medium, and they have a team, and they go out, they set up, and they have an investigation in the house. And it is like a riveting investigation. I love how they portrayed it. And here's a bonus fact: the medium, whose name is Aurora, is played by Geraldine Chaplin, who is actually the granddaughter of Charlie Chaplin from the silent movies.
oh,
And it is like amazing. She's like my favorite character in the entire movie. But while the paranormal investigation there is not perfect, and it's very very Hollywoodized, you know what I mean.
yeah.
But it is very well done, and it's a good mixture of scientific observation and with a large amount of spiritualism thrown in with the medium.
Yeah.
So if you have not seen it, that is a must see. It is just turn the captions on. I don't know if they have an English dubbed version, but it is amazing. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's another one that's high on my list.
Yeah. I'll definitely have to check that one out too. Mhm. Um, and another one that we have tonight is The Others. Now, I know we were talking about it, was it last week, I
Right.
believe?
Hmm.
My mic cut out during the live, and so apparently no one heard what I was saying when I was talking about The Others.
The joys of
So,
live broadcast.
yeah, so I was gonna just do a little segment here about it, and so everybody can hear what I was actually trying to say last week. But The Others is another movie that's really good, a good depiction of the paranormal and hauntings. And it was released in 2001, and this is another one that is kind of like more from the spirit's perspective.
Hmm.
Spoiler alert! It's it does have a twist, so you find out more at the end, but just kind of not to spoil too much if you haven't seen it. But it's the people who they don't know their ghost. They actually think they're experiencing a haunting, whereas they're actually experiencing things that the living are doing, but they can't really see the living, so things will happen. So they think they're being haunted,
Hmm.
but really they're the spirits that just are not aware of the fact that they're spirits. Um, so again, this is
Spoilers.
another one. Yeah, but it's been out so
Yeah.
long
Right.
that if this spoils it for someone, I'm sorry. It's been out so long that you know.
Yeah.
um, but so it's another great representation of a residual haunting, I believe, and this one even kind of features a transition
Hmm.
from a residual haunting to a more intelligent haunting.
Right.
Yeah, and which I believe that that can happen. you have, and if those of you have not watched our episode from last week about the residual versus intelligent hauntings, be sure to go back and check that out. Um, but yeah, in this one, it starts out, it's a family,
Mhm.
and there is one that, and I can't remember, it's been so long since I've seen it, but there's one family member that is a little more connected and aware of what of the living,
Mhm.
and but the mother especially is not, like, she's completely like unaware, but weird things are happening. And then towards the end, when the twist happens, and even though like this is a spoiler, it's still presented in such a good way, it's going to give you that
Oh
moment,
yeah.
so it's still great, if you even if you know what's going to happen.
Right.
um
And
but yeah,
let me throw in just the Nicole Kidman's performance in this movie is phenomenal. But not only
yeah,
that, but the kids
yeah,
just steal the show, and it's another one of my passion movies that I have to watch at least once a year.
yeah. And also what's really cool about it is, the part where the husband comes in.
Oh yeah.
So apparently, like, he had gone off to war, and he I don't she is very confused, like, during that whole time, because he's different, but
Hmm.
really he's a spirit as well. And he returns, and then goes away again. So he apparently died at war, but his spirit returns, but he goes back. So that's a great representation of a residual haunting as
Yeah.
well, because he's repeating this memory, going back to the place he knows, but also then almost like he's going back to, like, war. He's kind of cycling between those two,
Hmm.
and basically his realities, which all he knows is like those memories of home
Hmm.
and probably war. And
Right.
so I just thought that was um, really good. And then let's see. So yeah, the transition from residual to intelligent, you see that transition in her, in the mother, and I thought that was really good. The director did a fantastic
Oh
job
yeah.
presenting scary imagery, and without overdoing it. Like, they kept it more believable. A lot of times Hollywood will overdo it with some of the scary imagery because it's like, oh, a ghost would never do something like that. But a lot of the scary imagery was almost unintentional on, I mean, it's intentional, but what I mean is, like, um, it's just not overdone.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a really good, more accurate portrayal in Hollywood of a haunting.
Yeah. Yeah. And can I also add,
Mhm.
are you mad? I am your daughter.
I'm gonna have to watch that again soon. It's been so
Best
long.
best line in a movie ever.
Yeah. I was actually thinking recently, I was like, I might have to introduce my kids to that movie
Yes.
because
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
haven't seen it
Definitely.
yet, and it's one that won't scare them too
Right.
badly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. It's not overly scary with the
Yeah.
with the imagery or any. It doesn't have like a lot of bad words or anything like that. So it's
Yeah.
something I would feel comfortable, with a sort of younger kid, but not, like not like a toddler.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is really good.
Yeah. And we also have some honorable
Mm-hmm.
mentions that we won't get too much into, but just some movies that feature the paranormal that are
Mm-hmm.
worth just kind of, mentioning. The first one is the Insidious franchise.
Right.
Now, I love the Insidious franchise. I like that the take on it is a little bit different because it's about astral projection and someone going into that spirit realm. And so not so much someone dealing with this like haunted house. It's actually the people that are haunted, and it's because they have the ability to astral project, which opens up a door to all of these supernatural happenings. Is that accurate of um you know things that we experienced in our investigating and experiences with paranormal? No, but it's
Yeah.
still a good scary movie.
And they're good, solid movies too. Good acting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
effects.
And there's also some things about it that they kind of pull from a little bit more superstition and lore,
Mm-hmm.
which that is like, if you can astral project, you're leaving your vessel behind. So your
Mm-hmm.
soul kind of escapes from its body and can travel in the spirit realm. Well, that leaves your vessel, your body vulnerable. That can be taken over by malignant spirits.
Right.
And so that's so they play off more of the superstition, and because a lot of people believe that can happen. It's like, a lot of people believe, spirits can get trapped in mirrors and
Hmm.
things like that. And so so you could say it's fitting for some superstition and lore.
Yeah.
But as an actual haunting, no.
Yeah.
But I really love those movies.
Right. Exactly.
They're
Exactly.
pretty creepy. If you want a scary movie, I think those are some of the scarier ones out there.
You're right.
Let's see, another one I have for an honorable mention is the Conjuring series. Those are based on true life stories. Everybody's heard of the Conjuring House. And so that's I really like those movies too. I mean, it features real life like the story. I'm sure Hollywood really embellishes a lot of
Yeah,
things.
a little bit. A little bit.
Yeah, for cinematic effect. Um, but when it comes down to it, it is based on a true story.
Right.
You've got the
Loosely
Warrens.
based.
Yes, loosely based. um, and so yeah, that's another good series. I really
Hmm.
like those. And of course, in that series you have it kind of like branched off into other stories from the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warrens, experiences, like with Annabelle,
Hmm.
things like that. So those are more good ones. And then the next one I wanted to mention was The Sixth Sense. So The Sixth Sense, and I can't remember when that movie came out, but it's been out, a while. Maybe it was like what, in the late 90s.
Right. Yeah.
I can't remember. Um, that one I thought was really good, in the way of kind of representing a spirit that doesn't know they're dead. And then also kind of showing it from the perspective of someone who is a medium who can see dead people and communicate with the dead people. And so, I thought that one, and again, that's one that it's been so long since I've seen it, but that one too, I feel like there's a lot of things that could be very um, accurate to actual hauntings. And that one's got a couple of jump scares. I
Yeah.
think not anything too big, but and to me, The Sixth Sense and any of M Night Shyamalan's movies, those have a slower build as well.
Right. Right.
And so I like that. They focus a little bit more on an artistic direction rather than
Hmm.
just trying to scare people. They they build their horror and build their the tension in different ways,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I like that.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think this movie put Toni Collette in everybody's spotlight because her
yeah,
performance as the mom, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
yeah, yeah.
She
I
is
love
amazing.
her.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Mhm. Um, and then you have the next one, Paranormal Activity. I mean, those are the kind of that found footage
Hmm.
film that um, I mean, most people have seen this movie, but if you haven't, it's about these um, people who documented a haunting in their home. I thought the first one was really good, and they're all to me. I like them all, but there's some of them that gets a little bit more into like on a sinister level, almost like with a demon. And I think there's parts of them. I can't remember which one exactly, but it gets into like the family um, history of the couple from like the first one. It kind of goes back further and explains like why these people are like so cursed or whatever
Right.
to experience all this stuff. But on the original Paranormal Activity, there's things that like I think there's one part where they find a Polaroid or something up in the attic, like a ghost has been
Yeah.
stealing
I remember
pictures of
that.
her and storing the pictures in the attic. Some of that, like that's not gonna happen
Right.
in real life with a haunting, but it's a good creepy movie. I like how they do, and of course, I think on this movie it actually ends up being a demon. I can't remember, but they the bumps in the night, stuff like that, they did a good job. with that too. So, um, and then also the next one. Now this is a series, The Haunting of Hill House. Now, if you have not watched The Haunting of Hill House, and it was on Netflix, I think it still is. I love The Haunting of Hill House
Oh, it is
series.
so good.
Yes, it is. Now, is it accurate to a haunting? No, I don't. I don't really believe so. But that's a good ghost one if you're wanting to, some. You're wanting. It's drama. It's a drama. But it's horror. It's a lot of things mixed in together, and it's sad. So you might have a good cry. You might have, a moment where you're just like really terrified. I love the whole series. It's scary. And there's one, and now I'm not going to spoil this part
No.
because this is something I think everybody needs to experience. But there's one ghost kind of throughout, the bent neck lady. And so when you realize I think it's like the fifth episode, I can't remember, when you realize who the bent neck lady is and the way they present that whole episode, there's a moment where I was like, oh, it just kind of like stopped my heart for a second because that was so brilliantly written. So that right there, y'all, anybody that has not watched The Haunting of Hill House, you got to watch it.
That's a must.
Yes. And then the next thing kind of following after that is The Haunting of Bly Manor. So Bly Manor is the second season. It's not really a season. Um it's the same writer and director and all that. So it's in there can't really be a sequel to Haunting of Hill House. So they came out with The Haunting of Bly Manor. Another one, not like a great depiction of um a realistic haunting. However, I think it's a really neat take on it. You have this spirit who died so long ago, but she has forgotten who she is. She's aware of, like, it's not technically a residual haunting. She's aware, but she completely like loses all of the humanity she once had. And you don't really get into too much of her story until the end. The series is about like so much more, but that right there, if you want a good cry, hold on one second. That is, sorry, that was my phone. Um, if you want a good cry, the Bly Manor will make you cry
Oh, it's
your
so
heart
good.
out.
It is really good.
It is so good. I watched it recently for the second time. It's probably one of my favorite series. It is, I almost want to cry thinking about it. It breaks my heart, but it's scary. It's good. You guys, if you like scary stuff, watch The Haunting of Bly Manor. But
Hmm.
do have yourself a box of tissues. I mean, it's rough. Um, okay, two more I'm gonna mention. Ghost, the film Ghost. I mean, that's an older one, with Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg. Everybody knows that one. Um, that one right there. That one, of course, I don't. It's so um, Hollywoodified. However, what I'm mentioning this one for is because a lot of people believe that spirits are bound to one location, and I like the representation of in this one of a spirit um, being able to go places. Um, Whereas I talked about in like the I am the pretty thing in the house, that spirit would go dormant, and that's why the activity kind of would go in waves. Well, this kind of features some of the theory of like spirits leaving the house. Like they don't have to be in one location. They can go, like he follows Whoopi Goldberg's character through several places, and that's one thing as a paranormal investigator and someone experienced with hauntings and growing up in haunted houses and having the same entity follow me from different houses. Spirits are not bound to one place. There's some that sometimes they might just choose to stay at a place. I don't believe that spirits are bound to one place. I believe they can travel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I'm
They
mentioning this
followed us
particular.
home.
Yeah, yeah. And so And this is just one movie that shows that spirit going from different places.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, the last one I'm going to mention is called Carnival of Souls. I
Now you're going
believe,
way back with this one.
yes, I think this one was 1962
Hmm.
is when it released. Um, I I love this movie. I saw it several years ago. It's black and white film, and um, it's very creepy. Um, but it's features a little bit more of purgatory, like the, if I can remember correctly, it's um, the spirit realm. Pretty much is this carnival of souls is this carnival literally of souls in this spiritual realm. And I think it starts out with these people in a car accident, and maybe if I can remember, it's been a while, and it's just always been um, that one's a pretty creepy movie.
It really is, and
One of those
it's
black and white old
yeah,
classic movies too will really get you, and this one's scary,
the visuals
and
alone.
yeah, and it's different than your typical ghost movie because it is about these spirits, their souls trapped in this purgatory, and there's a carnival.
There is a carnival
So, yeah,
and souls and
yeah,
souls.
yeah.
All
So, and
right.
a lot of people are just simply terrified of carnivals and clowns and like that whole circus
Yeah.
aesthetic, and so you combine all of that is pretty creepy.
Yep. 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 I
So,
totally agree. So now it is my turn for some of my honorable mentions, and no movie list of mine would ever be complete without the very first horror movie that I ever saw, the very first movie on HBO that I ever saw, because we were poor. We grew up like very poor. But my mom had a friend that lived in another city. We went to visit for the weekend, and they had HBO. They were rich. So they had
yeah,
HBO. So, of course, I walk in, and what is on? The Shining. The absolute best horror movie, in my opinion, of any movie ever made is The Shining. I've read the book, I've seen the movie. This is literally on my yearly watch list. I watch it at least twice a year. If I am bored at home and I'm working on the computer or doing something, this movie is on. And so, like I said, it was the very first movie that I ever saw. The whole bathtub scene just made me want to curl up into a ball and scream my head off because I was a little kid, and I should not have been watching this movie, but it has now become an obsession. I love this movie more than anything in the world. So I love how it is the story of how a man just is driven insane by the spirits in a
yeah,
location. Stanley Kubrick's cinematography, every single shot in this movie is a perspective shot.
yeah.
It is the most brilliant movie as far as cinematography goes that I've ever in my life seen. Even though it varies a lot from the book, which I love the book, it is its own creation, and it took a little while for Stephen King to come on board with all the changes, but he's on board now. But I just
Hmm.
cannot say enough about this movie. The
Yeah,
ghost in the movie, is it a fair representation of a haunting? Maybe not, but it is definitely a fair representation of abuse, alcohol abuse,
hmm,
addiction, and slowly going insane through isolation. And the way it's shot, you feel every single bit of that. So,
yes,
and it's
yes.
it's amazing. So I
Mhm. And
cannot.
you have that Kubrick stare that Jack Nicholson
Oh my
probably is what
gosh.
who made that
Oh, he
that a
is
thing.
exactly. He is the Kubrick stare. I mean,
Yes,
there
yes,
is there is there is no other actor that has ever nailed it as much as Jack Nicholson. But
yeah,
also Shelley Duvall. Oh my God. In
yes,
this movie, Shelley Duvall, I just can't. I just cannot say enough about it. I just
yeah,
absolutely love it.
yeah.
Now, you know, Ashley, that my goal this year was to start reading again.
Hmm.
So my goal at on January 1st was to read 6 books this year.
Hmm.
I'm on my 10th and 11th right now. So,
Mhm.
and it's
Overachiever, overachiever.
hey, we've met, you know me. Uh, but one of the books that I've read this year, because I never really read it, well, this was on audiobook. So I'm reading a physical book and then listening to an audiobook. So I have two going at the same time. But it's one of my favorite movies. I'm like, you know what? I never read this book. I'm going to read this book. And it is The Amityville Horror.
Mhm.
How can I have a movie list about a haunted house without The Amityville Horror? Uh, Now, this is one of those definitely embellished tales. Um, there's still a lot of conjecture out there as to whether any of this actually happened or whether it was just for money, but either way you put it, it is based on Ron DeFeo's murder of his entire family and then the family that purchased the house a few months after.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, while those murders were horrific and some of the aspects of the murder were very mysterious, as far as every one of his family members were sleeping on their stomach, all of them were shot except for the mother. All of them were shot through the back, and nobody heard a thing. Nobody woke up. There were no traces of drugs or sedatives or anything in their bodies, and
Yeah.
none of the neighbors heard. And the book is very brilliant. As a matter of fact, we've had a couple of investigations out of town, and this is what I listened to as I was, driving
Mhm.
those few hours to our locations and a
Yeah.
few hours back. So that's one of my new things is to read a lot, and I've just started The Exorcist. It's a little scary. It is a little scary. But yeah,
Yeah.
Amityville Horror is a quintessential haunted house movie. And we're
And
talking about Josh Brolin and,
Mhm.
the movie from the
Barbara,
70s.
is it
Yeah.
Barbara Hershey?
No, it's not Barbara Hershey. She was in The
Yeah,
Entity,
that's right.
which
Yeah.
The Entity, that would have been good to put on this list.
Yeah.
It was an amazing movie.
I will say something too about the Amityville Horror. There's some things in it that I feel like do really represent like some actual hauntings. Like I remember growing up and like I said, my house is haunted.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I watched that movie, there's a lot of things that were very similar. That the subtle little things that would happen at their house, but also waking up at 3 a.m. Like that's a common experience across like many haunted locations. Like people would wake up at like 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
That's featured in the movie. And so there's things like that. Like at my old house, we would always wake up at 3 a.m. Something would wake us up. Um, and yeah, so there's a lot of things that I feel like are accurate, even though there is a lot of Hollywood
Yeah,
stuff.
embellishments. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. All right, my next one is one that is not on a lot of radars anymore, but it really, really, really should be, and that is Ghost Story by Peter Straub, or the book was by Peter Straub. And the Ghost Story, it's from the 70s, early 80s, but this movie is phenomenal. Now, this is one where I think they get some of the hauntings pretty good. Of course, it's embellished, highly embellished, but
Hmm.
atmospheric. But let's talk about the cast of this movie. This movie is directed by John Irving, starring Fred Astaire, Melvin Douglas, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., John Houseman, Craig Wasson, and Alice Krige, the Borg Queen herself, Alice Krige. This movie is it's mind blowing. It's been many 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 years since I've seen it, but as soon as we started prep work for this episode, I was like, oh, Ghost Story. Now I
Hmm.
really want to watch it again. I'm coming on spring break in a couple of weeks after my Dallas trip, and that's on my list to watch during spring break because I have not seen this movie probably in 20 years.
Hmm.
I'm definitely going to watch it again. But as soon as we started, getting ready for this episode, that movie was just playing in my head over and over. I'm like, I've got to put this as an
Yeah.
honorable mention.
Hmm.
But I mean, the cast alone is, and the mystery that is in this is also really good. Now,
Hmm.
so I've talked about a lot of older movies. Let's talk about a new series, and I don't know if you know anything about this series, Ashley, but it's called The Blackwell Ghost. and now they're up to like 8 movies. They're all on Prime. The problem is, they're pay per view, so you got to rent them. But I saw the first one, and I was actually very pleasantly surprised. It's found footage type. It's well, basically, it's about a man who is going to do a paranormal investigation in this house, and it's a setup. It basically is a real ghost hunt. This one is one that when you watch it, you're like, wait, is this a real paranormal investigation? Because the entire thing is by the book, what we do on a paranormal investigation.
Yeah.
And a little bit of it may be a little cheesy, but it really is a fair representation of, or at least the first one. I haven't seen all of them, I have to admit. It
Mhm.
is on my list. This is another spring break thing that I'm getting ready to do. But yeah, it's a fairly good representation of a setup for a ghost hunt. Now it's just him and his wife in the first one.
Mhm.
I'm not sure about the other ones because, like I said, I haven't seen those. But it is one that is on my radar that I'm going to try to watch all of them over the spring break.
Yeah.
So if you have seen this movie, send some info in the, not spoilers, but info in the comments. I would like to know a little bit more about it. But it is one that is definitely on my radar.
Yeah. Well, for fun,
Hmm.
what is your all-time favorite horror movie? So not necessarily about, paranormal or ghost or anything, but just all-time favorite horror movie.
My all-time favorite horror movie,
Hmm.
well, I've already said is The Shining, but the other one is Alien. Alien
Hmm.
is Alien and The Shining. They're right up there together. And when like I said, when I'm working from home, those movies are on. They're movies I can
Yeah.
put on at any time, and I'm totally they're comfort movies.
Yeah. Hmm.
What about you?
So mine is The Thing. So like the 1980s,
Oh,
1980, 1982 with Kurt Russell.
yes, yes.
So, and that's a good horror movie. I
Oh
mean, it's
yeah.
more so about like, an alien, an ancient alien species
Hmm.
thing. And so that I always love that movie because there's not that CGI effect.
Yeah,
Everything was
everything's practical.
puppeteering.
Hmm.
Yes, they used puppeteering. They used anything they could, like jelly or just food stuff like
Yeah.
peanut butter or whatever, to make some of the gunk.
Oh God, I love
And
that movie.
so it's gross. There's trigger warning some animals in there that don't fare too well, and I don't like that in movies.
Me
I
either.
have to
Me
get
either.
past that part, but I absolutely love that movie because it's the isolation, because they're in what, Antarctica,
Hmm. Yeah.
or somewhere like that. It's the isolation that makes one thing so scary, the music and all of that. Like, that's just always been one of my absolute favorite horror movies.
What is it? What is it about 70s and 80s horror movies that, and even before, that just
Mhm.
make them so iconic? And I think you hit the nail on the head. There's not a lot of CGI. Everything is practical. Everything is believable.
Yeah.
Your
Once they got to like
Mhm.
later on, huh?
I was going to say your eye has somewhere to focus. In some of the more recent, CGI heavy movie, you don't know where to look on the screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like so much going on that
Yeah.
you don't know where to put your attention. But
Yeah.
these, there's such a focal point. Everything is so real. Everything is very visceral. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, once they got to like the mid 80s and stuff, and the CGI started
mhm,
to be, or special effects and all that started
right?
to become popular, it got extremely cheesy.
Yeah, yeah.
Then it got better.
Hmm.
But going back to like the older stuff, they used camera tricks. Like, I saw this video recently where they would, if they needed to put a castle on a hill,
Yeah.
instead of having the access to do, and this is like a black and white film or something, instead of having access to like CGI castle on a hill,
Hmm.
they had an artist come. They
Hmm.
had a glass,
Yep.
and they painted. They look, you have to get the perspective right with
Hmm.
the camera and everything. But up on the hill, on the glass, they painted, like hand painted a castle, and then they um, filmed on that side of the glass, so you can see the people going horseback up the
Right.
hill. But there's the castle on the hill, and they they had to get creative and they had to be very innovative with stuff like that. And there's just something so great about
Hmm.
those things instead of,
Oh
a
yeah.
computer doing it. And so,
Even in the Star Wars movies, the original matte paintings that they're called matte paintings, and the artists are incredible. There's
mhm,
some scenes like in Return of the Jedi where there's this huge hangar and there's like 100 troops. Only about 20 of those are actually there. The rest were painted in. You would
yeah.
never know, even to this day, you would never know. Now they would do it
Mhm,
with digital art, which has its place, but those
mhm,
original matte paintings are just phenomenal,
yeah.
absolutely phenomenal.
I'm gonna check over on Facebook because I know we had a
Mhm.
submission area in our group to see if anybody wanted to submit questions, and I don't want to miss anything
Yeah.
if they did. So I'm gonna check that really quick.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see any, but we did have a viewer submit some photos
Mm-hmm.
recently, and so we did want to, because we're including this segment now where people can send in photos and we can analyze the photos and see if we can explain anything in there of why something might look paranormal or anything like that. So we're going to move on over to that part,
Okay.
and we do have some photos sent in by Princess Snow. So Princess Snow is a friend of mine, and so her photos, it was taken on a Fuji film camera, I believe, and it was at the old jail in St. Augustine, Florida.
Oh, very cool. I would like to
Um,
go there.
yes, that definitely. There's so many places out in St. Augustine that, I mean, you have like the lighthouse, you have a lot of places out there that are famously haunted. So I've definitely wanted to get out there and investigate some places.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, she said that just kind of like describing the surroundings and everything to me. She said it was an overcast day. She said there's nothing immediately in front of a window, but in the image, in the picture, you do see that there's a tree and some stuff like that. So even if something's not necessarily up against, like right up next to a window, you can still get reflections from something kind of, far away. And so she had a neighbor that was looking over these pictures and noticed in that top window, the window in the top right corner. So if you can see, there's like some light reflecting and stuff. And I mean, honestly, especially like if you zoom into it, you can see this like dark image over the top that almost would look like someone's hair, and a lighter part that almost looks like a dress, and you can kind of see that detail of like the curtain behind. But um, you know, trying to really look at this image and analyze, like I have no doubt in my mind like this location is haunted. Like I said, there's so many places in St. Augustine that are haunted. um, but this particular image, that very top area that's a little bit darker, I believe is a reflection from the eave of the house, kind of that overhanging part, because over to the side, you can even kind of see how that overhang kind of extends out. And from the ground level looking up, that perspective is going to reflect the eave. And so that's almost like a little shadowed area, um, a darker reflection on that glass. Even though it's an overcast day, you're going to have a lighter sky. You can see the reflection of the leaves. So I really believe that this is a case of pareidolia.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm not discrediting the fact that the jail is, I'm sure, really haunted. And Princess Snow also experienced a lot of things at the location.
Oh,
She
cool.
said that she heard some things that, well, experienced some things that were more of like the auditory in nature.
Yeah.
So she heard some things, maybe like some disembodied voices, things like that, maybe some knocks, stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so anytime you're at a location and you experience something or you can sense something, take that, um, like as to, if you go with your gut,
Yeah.
feel something, experience something, like go with your gut. Um, I mean, honestly, 99% of photos that we've taken or people have sent in, just, me taking pictures, when we go on a ghost hunt, I take pictures of the outside. 99% of the time it is pareidolia.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately.
but don't,
Yeah.
yeah, don't let that make you feel like,
Oh
oh,
no.
that, that sucks that I didn't catch anything. That's just a common, very common thing. um, because it's so easily, pareidolia is just such an easy thing to experience.
Yeah.
Our brain just does that, so we might think we're seeing a face, whereas we don't. And we did a whole episode on pareidolia.
Hmm.
So if you look back a few weeks ago, if you haven't watched it, there's the proof versus pareidolia
Hmm.
episode where we go a lot more in depth with what pareidolia actually is and how our brains kind of create that pareidolia.
Right. And don't look at it as like, oh man, even if we were to say, hey, we think that's pareidolia, don't say, oh man, they're just shooting us down. It's good to be able to train your eye, to be able to
Yes.
see or to be able to tell, this is pareidolia, or sometimes, you know what? You know, we've checked all of our boxes and there's no explanation for this photo. So it's
Yeah.
good to have a trained eye to be able to see that and to be able to admit to yourself, like we have a lot of things that we may think is wonderful, and another person, we get a fresh set of eyes and they're like, yeah, I really think
Yeah.
that might be a cloud that's up there. And you're like, you know what? Okay, yeah, we can admit that. And,
Mhm.
like we say, when in doubt, throw it out. You know,
Yeah.
they're great photos sometimes, but sometimes it's just crap. But
Yeah.
that just trains your eye for the next one that might not be pareidolia.
Yeah, and there's only been like out of hundreds, maybe even thousands of pictures that I've seen or even taken myself, it's never been an actual entity. There's two pictures though, my whole life that I've seen. One that somebody took at a location here in town.
Hmm.
They've had analyzed and everything, and it's actually something that I'm like, okay, that might be
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
And
and I
then
love
also
those.
I've seen, yeah, and then I've seen some photos that were taken at Gettysburg. Those were 100% like no doubt like wow, that's something.
Nice.
And but that's the only time ever that I've actually it's that rare to actually catch something
It
on
is,
film like that.
unfortunately.
Yeah, but yeah, especially like if you experience like hearing some disembodied voices or something, like that's a cool
Oh
experience right
gosh,
there.
yes,
Like
absolutely.
yeah, so yeah. um but yeah, so if anybody else like has anything like even audio
Hmm.
clips, if you
Oh
want to
yeah.
send us, and we can try to analyze them and stuff. Like I had an audio clip recently from a recent investigation, and it sounded just like a voice. I was really excited about it, and then we all had to kind of like um uh, analyze it a little bit, enhance it, try to
Hmm.
figure out, match it up to some video to see what could have been causing that, to make sure it is an EVP. Because we have to go, there's steps, there's a
Oh yeah.
process you go through to make sure something's an EVP. And it was, and this has actually happened before, where maybe your arm brushes up against
Yeah.
something, and and
Or
it's like,
someone
oh
whispers.
man, yes, I was like, that was not an EVP. I thought it was, and so I have
Yeah.
to throw it out.
Right. When in doubt,
So,
throw it
but
out.
yeah, yeah, and but if anybody has any pictures, videos, audio clips, or anything, if just questions, send them in to us, and we will feature them on the show. We love to talk about
Hmm.
all of this and help validate or debunk something.
Exactly, exactly. And also, subscribe. Get your friends to subscribe on all of our social media. We're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on Reels. We're pretty much on everything. Facebook group. But yeah, share us. We're trying to get ourselves out there and get to know more people in the paranormal community, and to try to possibly be a voice in the paranormal
Mhm.
community. So,
Yeah.
share our socials, share this YouTube channel.
Mhm.
Also, we've got some really cool things in store. We keep saying that every week, but we have a new episode coming out
Mhm.
very soon,
Yes, it
and
would be very soon. We actually have two
yeah,
episodes
2 episodes
that are
that,
going to be
yeah.
coming out. So I'll let you all know a little bit closer to time when this next one's going to be
Hmm.
posted. So it'll be coming soon.
Right, exactly. And also go back and watch our series episodes, watch our podcasts that we're doing, and just share the love.
Mhm. And we're also on Facebook. We have a group, and so it's a private group, so you can join it. And so if you're on Facebook, it's Crash Media Paranormal.
Mhm.
That's what we are across all our social
Right.
medias: Instagram, TikTok, and then a group on Facebook. So yeah, stay connected with us.
Absolutely. And if you have questions, if you have comments, feel free to leave them on in the comments section. Send us an email, crashmediaparanormal@gmail.com, and submit some photos. Submit some ideas for shows. Submit, whatever you'd like. Just carry on a conversation. We're good.
Yeah. So thank you all for tuning in tonight. We enjoyed
Absolutely.
talking about movies, and we both love
Oh
movies,
yeah.
so we but yeah. So thank you for tuning in and spending this time with us.
Yep. And everyone have a wonderful week, and we will see you next week.
Mhm.
All right. Have a good night, Ashley.
Good night.
All right. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more videos or want to be a part of our live investigations, hit the subscribe button. Also, if you have any ideas for future investigations or want to share your own paranormal encounters, please feel free to leave a comment or send an email to crashmediaparanormal@gmail.com.